I'm going to do a whistle-stop tour of that subject matter. I think I want to tell you a bit about the why and the what as much as anything, because some of this is going to matter at some point to certain people. So just a bit of knowledge around EPCs as much as anything. I don't know how well this is known, but there are actually two types of EPC. There's a domestic one and a non-domestic one, and they focus on different things, and therefore what the EPC says and how people use them and how people attribute value to them is different. So we're predominantly focusing on domestic matters here, and the focus of a domestic EPC is around fuel poverty, and the cost of fuel is really important in that A to G rating appears on the EPC. And if you have that in the back of your mind when we look at heat pumps in a second, that'll make a bit of sense. They are an asset rating, and they allow people to compare one property with another. You don't have any consideration about the people living in those buildings. So it is literally just what is the asset and what rating is that asset. They are valid for 10 years. This may change, and I'll cover that in a second as well. And also, it's important not to rely on older information that may be out of date. I think that's a really important message to take away, is that the EPC is only as accurate as at the time of the survey, and things may have changed, and therefore the picture and what is being advised to the homeowner may change as well, or the prospective homeowner, should I say. And there is quite a lot of change coming in our industry. So we've got an EPC reform consultation, which is due very soon. That could be just before summer. We're hoping to see it this year at the very least. And there's a load of things wrapped up in there about how we're going to change the EPC and make it more effective for its future users. We're also got a new methodology coming this year, which is about how does the EPC get put together, what goes into the calculation. It is going to be more accurate. It is going to take longer to produce, and there's going to be some impact on cost around how those EPCs are produced. So I expect them to be more costly in the future. We're expecting to see that sometime this year around summertime, and we'll be able to get a date out when we know it. Further on from that, we've got a brand new model coming into the market called the home energy model. It's under consultation at the moment, and that really will change the game and move us towards more accurate modelling and a better understanding of how buildings perform, so that we can make some really, really good decisions on buildings. But as it is, we're in a sort of a transition phase at the moment. Just remember, change is coming. Why is all this happening? Because we're moving towards our legally binding target for being net zero by 2050, and that means decarbonisation and a move away from fossil fuels. So if you've got a gas burning boiler in your property, at some point between now and 2050, so quite a long period of time, we're going to see a shift away from those boilers to renewable heating systems of some kind, decarbonised heating. So it is a transition. It is moving towards electric. There's different ways of using electric to heat our homes, heat pumps being a primary one, but there are others. And also that also impacts on how we transport ourselves around the country. Our cars are moving towards electric vehicles. Again, there are other technologies out there. So it's all sort of swirling around at the moment. We are in this period of transition. In amongst that is the EPC, which helps us identify to a prospective homeowner what could be done to improve the building in terms of energy efficiency. And these recommendations appear on the EPC sort of halfway through. They manifest themselves when the recommendation saves somebody some money, and it creates an improvement to the EPC rating. Some of the measures, like a heat pump, don't necessarily do that. They actually reduce the amount of carbon emissions, which again is not a primary focus of a domestic EPC. So they may or may not appear. And at the moment, things like heat pumps don't appear, but that is changing. So again, another point of change. We're going to see different recommendations coming onto the EPC. So again, bear that one in mind. So in terms of what's important in terms of interventions, packages of measures, it's important that packages are installed in the correct way, in the correct order. So you wouldn't necessarily want to change a heating system without first thinking about the fabric. It's called a fabric first intervention. And you want to maximise benefit to the new occupant. Also, there's a consideration around disruption. So you don't want to do one measure and then 2 months later do another measure and have a similar level of disruption. I also want to make sure that we're adding value to the property as well, and talk about return on investment, but also how things affect the net present value of the property. What we want to end up with is a sort of like a sensible intervention for each property in the UK over the next 30 years. We want a good level of insulation. In some properties that's possible, some properties it's not so easy. We want to move towards a low carbon net zero heating source, like a heat pump. We need to think about the ventilation of the property, because as you seal it up, we need to ventilate better. And certainly things like PVs, solar power, batteries, that could be the car, but some form of storage within the property seems really, really sensible. So that's what a good package probably looks like. We'll just pull away on some of those individually. Insulation is a win-win-win. It saves money, it saves energy, it saves carbon. The problem is it's not always easy to justify on a return on investment point of view, because it's got a long payback period and it's quite expensive. But it should add to the asset value. Solar PV is really compelling. A lot of people don't understand it, so that's a big tick in the box. It saves money straight away. You can store the energy that's generated on there and use it at appropriate times. You can also sell it back to the grid. It's there to be appreciated from the outside of the building, so people get it. And I certainly feel, and I think others will agree, it adds value to the property as well. So again, really, really compelling measure. Heat pumps are more difficult. Heat pumps work. I hate it when we hear the bad press about how they don't work. They don't work because people don't really understand how they are designed to work. But a correctly sized heat pump is designed to be really, really efficient, run at about 4 times the efficiency of a gas boiler. So they work. The problem we have at the moment is electricity is about 4 times more expensive than gas. So really, they're only about, if you get it right, pretty much replacing that boiler without any detriment to the occupant. It shouldn't cost them more, but it could, because it's, they are the way that they're designed to work. They work at lower flow temperature and therefore should be more efficient. You've got to get that right. And ideally, you want to team that up with some good levels of insulation as well. So there's going to be some examination of that, some changes potentially to the way that fuel prices are in this country. But until that point, really, it's just about making sure when we install a heat pump in a property, it's no more expensive than the gas alternative. What it does do, it saves a whole heap of carbon, which is fantastic. And some people will really prioritize that and understand that. There are obviously some incentives out there at the moment to make the equation of cost of install work, and therefore there should be some appreciation that can add value to the property and probably won't cost as much as that value has been added to the property. EPCs are going to start recommending them soon. They're not a recommendation that you see on EPCs at the moment, but that is coming. So please bear that one in mind. So just to sort of summarize, EPC results are signed to impact the value of the perceived value of a property. Buyers are starting to recognise that. They're starting to prioritise the EPC rating a little bit more, and there's more awareness, I think, because of the cost of fuel and the cost of energy crisis. And up-to-date EPC is really important because things change at a property. The EPC itself is going to change this year. So if you've got a 9-year-old EPC, and then we're going to selling a property in the next 6 months, it's probably worth getting an up-to-date EPC anyway because of that fact. And the new methodology will have some impact. We should get more accurate assessments. The survey is going to take more time, and we're going to see new recommendations, particularly heat pumps, appearing on the EPC. Make the most of your energy assessor. They are the experts. They're the ones who understand what goes into an EPC and what makes the big differences. And at a time of change, that's really, really useful. Thank you very much.